Hi everybody, and welcome back to Sew Along with Jan and video 2 of the November Kimberbell Mini Quilt. So we're going to do 2 more blocks in this one. There was only 4 in this quilt, so we're going to do 2 more blocks and then we'll be ready to assemble in the 3rd video. So the first block that we're going to work on in this video will be the pumpkin block here. And this one's going to be another one that has quite a lot of applique in it. It looks like it's really cool though. And the pumpkin block looks like it has red leaves, gray leaves, and yellow leaves. And then it's going to have more of that cool plaid felt in it. So we're going to get the pumpkin block out here. I've got all my little pieces cut. And this one has shape flex on the back of all of the pieces. So I've got shape flex on the background piece and then all of the little pieces for the leaves and such. Okay, so we'll put the thanks block. That'll be the last one we do. I'll put that over here on the side. And we're also going to need this. Got to find it here. Sorry to put my arm in the camera. But we need this gray plaid felt also. So let's see. Where did I put my hoop? Whoops, it's behind me. So give me a second. I'm going to turn the camera off. I need to go get my hoop. Sorry about that. I had to go get my hoop hooped. I thought I had it all ready. You know, you never have everything ready when you think. So I have my embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin. I have a pre-wound in, so I have my tight bobbin case in. I have my white thread in the needle because we're going to start out with the quilting as usual. And then we're going to move on to, so it's going to do some sewing first and then it's going to start the applique. So we'll do get our quilting design up here. So this one, again, I don't have the one they called for, Thanksgiving 3. So I'm going to use Autumn 2 again, just like I did in the last one, the one with the pumpkins. So if you don't have the ones they call for, just use something you have. Because I have a bunch of them, but I don't have, I don't have all of them. I do have a lot of them, I have to say. But, there's usually something that'll work just fine. So we're going to use Autumn 2. And it says to use the 6x6 design. So we're going to, again, remember, block by block when we're doing this type of quilting. And let's see. So this is the one with the pumpkins. Here's the 6x6. So again, this block, all of these blocks are going to be the same. If you only have a 6x10 hoop, you can still do this by removing steps 3 and 4 out of your quilting design in some software. You just need some real basic software to do some editing. And like I said, the Dime Embroidery Toolshed Plus will work really great, and it's very inexpensive if you don't have any other software. So we got our 6x6 design, but you can see it turns out to be 6.5 by 6.5. I have an 8x8 hoop in because I have a larger machine. I'm using my Luminaire. So we're going to hit set here, and then we're going to go get the pumpkin block. So let me hit add, and then we'll go get our pumpkin block. Make sure I got into there. Hopefully I got in the right folder. Yep. Let's see, November, and then here's our pumpkin. So the pumpkin's kind of sideways in the hoop too, and these also say that they come in centered. So we wanted the Brother Baby Lock machines automatically center, so the hoop, the quilting is centered in the hoop, and then so is the pumpkin. And that is the way it says to have it. So we're going to hit set and embroidery. Now this one's going to probably take a little while too because it has, it's about 14,000 stitches. It has quite a little bit of detail and a lot of applique. But that's okay. These are really fun to do. All right, so we've got shape flex on the back of all of our fabrics. I'm using this is the same one that my gourd was on, the one with the little flowers on it. And so we're going to start out with our quilting as usual. I got my chunks of batting ready. And step number 1 is going to be the placement line for the batting. Gotta get my chunk of batting up here. And we're going to, whoops, second here, sorry cat. My cat has decided she's going to help me for the afternoon here. So I have to move the cutting mat though because she has to sit on her gray mat. She was upset with me because she doesn't like that rotating mat because when she steps on it, it turns and it scares her. Okay, so we got our placement line in here. I'm just going to use my white thread that I use for the quilting too. So we're going to put this in, cover up that placement line, just a chunk of batting. And then step number 2 is always our tack down line for the batting. Tack it down and we'll trim it. This has been a really fun series. So we have one more month. Can you believe there's only one more month to do? I'll do that about the 1st of November, and it's the December one, and it's a Christmassy one, as I remember. We'll look at it at the end of the video, maybe. But I'm excited to get these done, because then I'll have a little mini quilt for each month of the year to put in my frame. Yeah, so Gigi decided she needed to come out and help me. So she's sitting here helping me. She's been resting this afternoon. Since the house is up for sale, I have to keep her kind of confined because I don't know when, somebody might be in the house. So I have to keep her she has a room in the back of the house. And so I kind of keep her in there, and she's been enjoying herself today, sitting in her normal windows and sleeping on her tuffet. So we're going to trim this close to the stitches. And I actually had somebody knock on the door this morning, but I didn't hear it until they were leaving. I assume they probably were wanting to see the house, but I hope that they called the realtor. I mean, I'm not supposed to be showing the house. I have a realtor for that. So anyway, we'll see if anything comes out of that. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, so here's my batting. And then I'm going to do my step number 3, and this is one of the ones that you would remove. See how this is one of the ones that's going to cause the size problem if you only have a 6-inch hoop, because it makes it 6.5 then. So we're going to stitch that down for the placement of the fabric for the background. And then we're going to lay our background fabric down, and this has shape flex. So all of these have shape flex on the back. All these pieces that we're going to be using in this block. Get this down. Okay, and then we're going to do the tack down, which is step number 4, and then step number 5 will be the quilting. Had a little wrinkle over here. Hopefully it won't show too much. These are little fat quarters. Sometimes, when you have a fat quarter, they're kind of wrinkly when you take them out. So then step number 5 is going to be our quilting. So I'll turn the camera off while this is quilting. It's going to take a little bit to do that. And this is the pumpkins. And then we'll move on. And the pumpkin block is on page 9. And we'll start with the first step, which is going to be some leaves. So it's going to do some stitching first before we do any applique. Okay, so we got our quilting done. So here's our little pumpkins. And the first step of the actual design is some leaves. So I've got my light gray in for the leaves here. So I'm going to sew out the light gray leaves, and then we're going to switch to the gold, and we're going to start doing the applique for the leaves, and I think it's leaves and maybe the pumpkin stem. Okay, so I got my leaves down here. That was in the light gray, and now I switched over to my gold because we're going to start working with the gold fabric. So I'm going to do my placement line here. It looks like it's going to do maybe a couple of leaves at the top of the pumpkin here. Remember, it's kind of sideways. And then the stem, and there's 2 pieces of fabric. So we're going to put this long skinny one over the top here, and then this littler one at the bottom. So it's going to do the placement lines first. This is step number 2 on page 9. It's going to do all of our placement lines. I like to switch over my colors. You notice that I'm still switching my colors. I always do, because I found that every now and then I'll get caught that I'll have like a motif stitch on a stitch out, and then my placement line or my tack down line shows, so I like to just switch the color so it's the right color. You don't have to do that, but I just find that for safety's sake, I do it. Okay. So we're doing a leaf down here. So I think the small piece is going to go at the bottom. Now you can tape these down if you want, but I think they'll be fine. These all have shape flex on the back. So I'm going to put the small piece down here. And then I'm going to put this long piece across the top here. Like that. Okay. And then it's going to do the tack down lines for these. And then we will trim. And these will trim right away. So just kind of watch it. The foot does raise when it moves from one area to another, so it's normally okay. But I do just kind of watch that it doesn't, you know, catch my fabric. And see, it raises well and then comes down, so it should be fine. Okay, so then it's going to do the tack down lines up here. And then I think the second color is going to be the gray. Do some leaves, and I think the stem up here. I'm going to find my gray thread. This one was kind of nice. I didn't have to dig out too many threads. There's only about, what, 4 or 5 colors in it. The Christmas one looks like it has a lot of little blocks. I think it's back to a 9 patch. So we're going to have to do probably 4 videos for that one, just because there's going to be a lot of little blocks. I can usually only do about 3 blocks in one video, so I bet we'll do 3 block videos and for December. 3 block videos and an assembly video. All right, so we got all of these little things we got to trim now. So we're going to trim all these close to the stitches, and then we'll move on to the gray. I kind of like that they're doing all of the color at the same time. Second, I'm having trouble getting it out. There we go. All right, so we're going to trim around these. And if you kind of pull up a little bit, it helps you get closer. And if you don't have a pair of these Ginger scissors, I will also link these in the description below the video on our website, the ShieldSewingCenter.com website. These are awesome scissors. I've used these for years, and they get so close, and they got nice sharp tips on them. So it's way easier to get into like some of these little tiny areas. And so I'd highly recommend them. Ginger 6-inch double curved scissors. So I'll put the link in the videos for these also. I use these in almost every video, so. Embroidery scissors are a big deal. You know, good scissors are a big deal. And I do a lot of trimming, so you want to have good sharp scissors, and you want them to be, the curves get you closer when you're doing applique, and I do a lot of applique. And the thing, I had another pair that I really liked, but the tips weren't as, how do I say it, they weren't as pointy. So it's harder to get down into the little areas. These are so pointy, so these really work well. These are a little bit dainty, these scissors, so try not to drop them. I have a tendency to drop my scissors, so what happens is they're a little on the dainty side, and if you drop them too much, you can bend the handles a little bit, so just be careful of them. I try not to drop these because, you know, then they stay in good shape longer. All right, so let's go across this one. Get pretty close on these. This one does have satin stitches, so it's not, if you don't get quite as close, it's okay. Had to turn the air conditioner on. It got warm in here. It's not real warm outside, but this room gets so warm because of the sun coming in. So I always have to have extra air conditioning in here. It's the middle of the afternoon, so it gets pretty warm. All right, so there's our leaves. Now the next step is going to be, whoops, try to get it the right way here. The next step is going to be the gray, so I'm going to switch over to my light gray, the leaves and the light gray. So, get that in there. switch over to my gray thread. And then we'll do the placement lines and the applique for the gray leaves. And then I think there's red on this one too. Oops, I missed. Didn't get it in there. There we go. Okay. Let's get that going here. And I gotta find my little pieces. So let's see here. I'm gonna look at the book. Yeah, you just put the two little pieces in. I think one's smaller than the other one, maybe. Find my little pieces here. Yeah, one's a little small. These also have shape flex on the back. I think the smaller one goes down here on this leaf. They always give you plenty, so, which is nice. And again, I just cut this all out of scraps. I didn't have, you know, like much. Some of these, when I kind of saw what I needed, you didn't really need much. So the small one goes down here, and the larger one goes up here. And I think we'll be okay not to tape. I'll just watch them because the foot lifts. I'll just kind of hold it down and do the tack down line. So don't be afraid of applique. Applique is actually really easy, and it was one of the first things I learned to do. So when your foot lifts, then you're okay. I'm just going to watch this one. I'm not a big taper. I don't like to get the tape out unless I have to. Okay, and then we're going to trim these. So I'll get my scissors out again. Goes around it twice. But don't be afraid of applique. Applique is really fun, and as you can see, it's really easy. Once you get the hang of it, it's so easy. But you do need to have good scissors for applique. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pull these out. They do make an applique scissor with a duck bill on it, and I've never had good luck with those because I can't get close enough with those. That's why I like these little double curved ones, because they have little tiny tips. See, there's little itty bitty areas I have to trim here. And it's nice to have those little tips on there. But the little applique scissors, you know, they call them applique scissors, but they have those little duck bills, and they don't always work real well for me. I can't get very close with them. I have a couple pairs. I have a bigger pair, and then I have a little pair, and they do work, but I've always struggled a little bit with those. Get along better with these. So this is what I use most of the time. And they make a pair like this very similar. We got these on the website too. They have a 4-inch pair. It's not a Ginger. I think those are Havels that I usually can get, and they're only 4 inches. So if you want a really tiny pair, those are nice ones too. So I have those on the website too. And they're shorter. I like these because the little holders for your thumbs and stuff are a little bit bigger. Those are really small. So, all right, so there's our gray. So now I think the next ones are going to be the red ones. I need to turn the page. This was on page 9 of the instructions, and page 10, top of page 10 is, yes, so we're going to do the red ones now. So I'm going to switch over to my red thread, and we'll do our red appliques. I have all these pretty leaves in here. All right, this one had a lot of applique too, so I got to put this back in. Okay, whoop, got stuck on my needle. There we go. All right, so we're going to do our placement lines for the red ones. And I think, let's see, looks like the smaller one's going to go down on this side. Smaller piece of fabric. There's two different sizes of fabric. And this has that little fleck in it as well. And the bigger one goes at the top. Yeah, I saw all these little pieces of mine. Oh my goodness, there's all these little pieces, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Sometimes when you start cutting, you're thinking, oh my gosh, are the pieces ever going to end? Okay, so then this little one goes here. Okay, and then the bigger one goes up here. Whoops, second, I got a big tail sticking up here. Get out of there. And this goes up here. cover that one. I don't think I'm going to tape. You can tape if you want, but I'm just going to kind of watch it. I think it'll be fine. And then it's going to do the tack downs, and then we'll trim these. It's looking good. Foot's going to raise. I'm just going to watch this, make sure it doesn't get caught. There we go. Got a great big tail in this one too, don't I? If I can catch that before it gets up there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we'll trim these. And then we're going to do the same thing we did in the last video on the gourd. I'm going to do there's just a whole bunch of stitching before we move on to the applique at the very end. So I'll probably just do that off camera because it's just a whole bunch of stitching. So let's do these. Just, you know, doing the details on the leaves and the satin stitches, and all the colors are right on there. So I'll show you the numbers, you know, the steps that you need to do. And then I'll just turn the camera off and I'll do all of that because it's just stitching. So just follow the instructions for the colors and everything. It's real easy. All right, get that. Let's get this one. Oops, I don't think I got very close on this one. Oh, maybe it's okay. Yeah, I guess it's okay. We'll get this one. These had a lot of little teeny little crevices, so boy do these little scissors work well to get into those little teeny crevices on these leaves. So some scissors are way harder to do that with. You're about to see a cat foot, probably. Sorry about that. She thinks she's going to come over and help me. She must have woke up. All right, so there's our leaves. So I got all of our leaves on, so let me put this back in, and then let's look at the instructions here to see what the next steps are. So the rest of there's a whole bunch of this is going to be just stitching. So we're going to starting with step number 8 is going to be the gold, and it's going to do some satin outlines, and then we're going to do gray. 9 and 10 is gray and some satin outlines and also some leaf details. 11 and 12 is going to be red, so it's leaf details and satin stitches. And then 13 and 14 is going to be more leaf details and satin stitches. 15 is gray, 16 is red, 17 is gold, and 18 is gray. So all of those 8 through 18, I'm just going to do all of those and come back because it's going to do all of the little details on the leaves and also all the satin stitches. And then the last 2 steps are going to be the applique with that pretty plaid fabric again. So do steps 8 through 18 and just follow your colors, and then we will come back and we'll do the applique together at the end. Okay, so I finished my steps number 8 through 18 and see all the pretty details in the leaves and all the satin stitches are done. And now we're ready for the last 2 steps. It's going to be the applique with that plaid felt. So I got my yellow back in my machine, my gold, and we're going to do the placement line, and then we'll get ready to put our felt down. This is so neat. Those colors just really make those soft grays pop out, don't they? Okay, so we're going to put this down over the top, and I'm going to make sure that I try to keep it as straight as possible since it's a plaid. We want it to be pretty straight, so let's see if I can keep it. I'm using this line down here to help me and keep it straight, so I think we'll be good there. Okay, and then it's going to do the tack down line, and then it is going to do a little bit of decorative, you know, like detail stitching. So I'll turn the camera off for just a minute while it does that, and we'll do the trimming together. So it's going to stitch it down first with a nice triple stitch, because this is going to, again, going to be raw edge applique. And then it's going to do some detail stitching in the center. And then I'll come back and we'll do the trimming. Okay, so we've got all of the stitching done. So now we need to trim. And again, this is going to be raw edge applique. So that was the last step in this design. So I like to kind of tip my scissors when I do this. And you want to be maybe a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching. And I like to kind of tip my scissors towards me, because then it keeps the edge nice and flat. Just don't get too close. It's a little harder when you get into these leaves, because they're just a little thick there. So we'll trim this. Isn't this going to be cute? I'm glad I did these colors. I wasn't sure when I first saw it, and I thought, oh, am I going to like these? But I do like this gray. I liked this gray plaid, and I thought, well, let's just give it a try. Because I was going to do it a little bit more traditional and do something else here, but I just really liked this plaid. Okay, a second here. Here. My gosh, those are going to be so cute. Looks very fall, though. You know, I think of plaid and fallish, you know, for fall, and like flannel shirts and stuff like that, you know. So I'm actually looking forward to that, because it's a little bit too warm for me. It's like in the 80s. Actually, I'm looking up at my thermometer right now, and with the sun shining on my front step, it says it's 130 degrees on my front step, which I'm sure it is, because the sun is very warm today. So I'm anxious for some cooler weather. Oh my gosh, isn't that pretty? Look at there. So there's our pumpkin with all the pretty leaves on it. So that's the third block, and we got one more block to do, and that one's going to be, the one with the pie on it, and it's called Thanks. So I'm going to get ready to do that one, and we'll be ready to do the last block. Okay, so we're ready for our last block. This one's the Thanks block, and again, I've got my background piece, and this one has shape flecks on it. Now this one was a little different. There was red for the pie filling, and then this is going to be like the pie crust. So those both have shape flecks on them, but then they didn't say to put it on the it says to the wrong side of the background fabric, which is the pie crust and the pie filling. So they did not say to put it on the gray. So I didn't put it on the gray. I think you could, because it looks like there's a bunch of, I might go put it on. I was going to see, I wondered if they thought it would be too thick if you did. But it doesn't say to put it on there. So I'm just going to try it without it. But I think it's because there's several layers around that area where the pie is, so that's probably why they told you not to. So it doesn't say to, so we won't. All right, and then this one we're going to do our block by block quilting again. And this one I'm going to go back to that geometric 7. So there was 2 of each. There was 2 with the pumpkins and 2 with the geometric design. And it's called geometric, so I got to find it here. If I go too fast, it goes all the way to the bottom. Sorry. Geometric, I think it was 7. So I didn't have the one they called for. The one they actually called for was Stars 7, and I didn't have that one, so we just did a different one. So here's Geometric 7, and then again, block by block, and then we're going to get the 6x6 design. So here's 6x6, okay, set, and then we're going to add the Thanks block. So we're going to go back to that and get our, sorry, my cat's trying to talk to me about something. I think she thinks she needs treats. It's about that time of afternoon when she needs treats, you know. So I'll probably stop the camera for a moment and go get her some treats so she'll stop meowing at me. Okay, and so here's our Give Thanks Gathered Together blocks. We're going to get that one, and then everything is supposed to be centered, so they automatically center. So we're going to hit set, And again, this one's going to be one of those ones, if you've got the little smaller machine, you can take out the placement line and the tack down line for the fabric to make it small enough to fit in a 6x10. So we're going to hit embroidery, and I think we're ready to go. So the first step will be the placement line for the batting as usual. And if you give me a moment, I'm going to go give my cat treats so she won't meow through the entire video. So just a moment, I'll be right back. Okay, so we're all ready to go. I got my no-show mesh in the hoop. I got my bobbin thread in the bobbin. Got my white thread in the top because that's what we're going to quilt with. And the first step of the quilting is always the placement line for the batting. So the cat's all happy. She has her treat now. She'll probably go back to sleep for a little while, and then it'll be time for supper. When I'm here on Sundays, you know, we have to have a schedule for the cats. So I have to leave the door shut out here when I'm working in the afternoon sometimes because she likes to come out and be a little too helpful. So I'm still in my 8x8 hoop because I'm going to do, because I have a big enough hoop. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and, oops, got some threads here. Lay this over the placement line, and we're going to tack that down. Step number 2 of the quilting. And remember, you pick the quilting designs that say block by block for these types. And the clear blue tiles ones are the ones that are basically like continuous, to make them look like edge to edge type quilting and like a larger item. So I was glad they did these. This has been fun to do. I don't do that many with the block by block. I prefer the quilting mine, you know, with the backing all in one piece. But for these small pieces, these work so well. So it's going to go around it twice. Yeah, next month, I think, I was just looking at this, I think it's got 9 blocks. It's got, you know, it went back to like the little 9 patch. So we're going to have a lot of blocks for next month. Okay, so we're going to get this all trimmed. And then it'll do the placement line for the fabric. Oops, maybe if I can get it to trim. Okay. Didn't do very well there, did I? Try that again. There we go. Get these ends. Oops. Again, I'm using Hobbs 80/20 batting. Gives me a little more loft type of feel. Okay, then we're going to do step number 3 of the quilting. It's going to be the placement line for the background fabric. And the block is on page 11 of the instructions. So we'll be starting those in a minute here. Give me a second. I'm trying to get a hold of my fabric. So there's our placement line. And I'm going to lay my fabric down. This also has shape flex on the back. I'm going to lay it down and kind of get it centered. And then step number 4 of the quilting is going to be the tack down line for that. I'm going to see what the first steps are for the design. I think it's going to do the applique first, it looks like. Alright, so it's going to do the tack down, and then I'm going to go ahead and start step number 5 of the quilting, which will do the actual quilting. So I'll just turn the camera off while this is going. It's going to do the little hexagon shape again. Alright, so off we go, and then I'll be back in a moment to start the applique. Okay, so it looks like we're going to start, and this is on page 11 of the instructions, step number 1 of the actual design. Looks like we're going to start with the pie tin. So that's going to be this darker gray. So I put my darker gray thread in, and we're going to do our placement line. And then this will be the applique piece. Make sure I get it right side up here. And then it looks like we're going to do the pie filling, which is going to be red. So put this over our placement line. Now this is the one that didn't have the shape flex on it. It didn't say to put it on, so I didn't. Okay, we're going to stitch this down, and then we're going to trim this one. Match that color pretty close. So we'll trim this one, and then we're going to switch over to red to do the pie filling. Pull this out so I can see it a little bit better. This one didn't have quite so many pieces, did it? The other one, like the gourds and the gourd and the pumpkin had a lot of pieces on it. So we're going to trim this. Okay. Then we're going to switch to red and do our berries. Looks like the cherry, it must be a cherry pie. This will be the pie filling. So we'll do our placement line first. And then get my little piece of fabric ready. And this one did have shape flex on it, so just going to kind of do a little small piece there. And we'll lay this down. And this is step number 3. This is step number 4, or ready for step number 4. Stitch the pie filling tack down line. And then we're going to trim. Ready to trim on this one. And then we're going to do the pie crust, which is the yellow or the gold. So we'll switch over to the gold here in a second. What a fun one. I've really enjoyed these little mini quilts. They've been so much fun. Lots of different techniques in them. You know, some of them have been harder, some of them have been easy. You know, this one's been pretty easy. It did have a lot of stitching in it, and quite a lot of applique, but it's been pretty easy. All right, then we're going to put our yellow in, the gold in for the pie crust. Get that. And that's the placement line. All right, and it says, then we're going to put this right side up. Then it says stitch the pie crust tack down lines with the yellow because they had you put it in. Then it says apply a fray preventative just inside the crust vent hole stitching, allowing to dry, and then trim the fabric from inside the crust vent holes and around the crust. So there's going to be some little holes here. I don't know. Whoops, looks like I need to adjust my machine here. Evidently didn't cut quite right. There we go. Let's rethread it. I'm not positive that I'm going to use like fray check. I'm not a big fray check fan, so I think it'll be fine because this does have the shape flex on it, so it should be fine actually. But if you want to do that, you can do that. I don't like fray check too well because sometimes it stains. And with this red, I'm a little concerned about that, so I don't know that I'm going to use it. And because there is a decorative stitch over the center, you look at it close. There is a decorative stitch. I think it's a decorative stitch. You look in the next page. It might tell me on page 12 here. Let's see what it says. Yeah, so there's decorative outlines on the inside, so I'm just not going to use the fray check. If you would like to do that, please do. It does say to do that in the instructions. Okay, so then we're going to do that, and then I'm going to put this over here. and then we're going to stitch this down. So this is step number 6. So the trick is we're going to have to do like reverse applique. So we have to get the fabric out from underneath, you know, from over the red, so that the little red will show through there. So that's probably why they tell you to do that. With the shape flex on there, it should cut okay. And if you have these little teeny scissors that have points, you should be all right. So we're going to skip that little, oops, sorry about that, instruction, and we're going to do our trimming. So let's see what it has us do here. So it's going to do one more. Oh, it has to do the outline yet. So it did the little inside pieces. Now it has to do the outline around the outside edge. So there's our pie crust. Go around it twice, I think, and then we'll trim this. So this is basically reverse applique. So what you're doing is you're trimming out from on, you know, there's something else underneath there. So that's a different technique, and that's probably why they told you to use the fray check. I don't have good luck with that stuff, and then it takes forever to dry, it seems like. So we're just gonna trim it. Let me see what I can do here. I'm gonna pull this out. Ugh, if I can get it to come out. Okay, so let's see. So what I like to do is I like to snip in the center, and just be careful, you don't want to snip your fabric underneath. And I stick my scissors in there. So I just take a little snip in the center, and then I'm going to take my scissors and go around the outside edge. And there is going to be a decorative stitch over here, so it should be okay. But I have these little scissors that have these teeny little tips. So, okay, so there's that one. Let me see if I can get trim just a little bit better. But there is going to be a decorative stitch, so it should cover it up okay. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to snip in the center here. Just be careful, don't snip down into your red fabric. I'm going to stick the little tips of my scissors in there and just go around. So I don't really think the fray check is going to be necessary. I am going to make sure it's good and trimmed, though. I'm going to trim real close because it's just going to be a small decorative stitch that's going to go over that. Looks like it'll be fine though. Okay, there's still just a little spot right there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to clip in the center. And the other thing you can do is use a seam ripper, but I have a tendency to snip down into my other fabric if I use a seam ripper. I do better with the scissors, so I didn't quite get through it. Just a second there. There we go. Just take your time. This is pretty small. Around the edges. But yeah, you can see that these little sharp tips really make a difference when you're working on stuff like this. I've done quite a lot of reverse applique. It's really fun to do. And you're trimming on the inside and the outside. Okay, so I think that'll be okay. So let's go ahead and trim the outside here. It's got some red thread there. There we go. Actually, there's no red thread in my seam. There we go. So trim close to here, and if you lift up a little bit, it helps. Yeah, not a big fan of fray check. I've had a little trouble. Every now and then I'll run across a fabric that it makes a stain or it looks funny, you know. So if I don't have to use it, I don't. Okay, let's get that red off of there. That looks pretty good. So then the next step is going to be, we're on page 12. And so we're just going to do some decorative stitching. So we'll go ahead and just do 7, 8, and 9 before we come back. So 7 is going to be the pie crust, and then 8 is going to be the pan detail with the pretty flowers, okay? And then 9 is going to be the decorative stitch on the pan. So we'll do 7, 8, and 9. So we'll start with the gold. We're going to go to the white and then the dark gray. And then we'll talk about this last part before we do the lettering. So I'm going to do those 3 pieces, and then I will be back and we'll do the lettering, start the lettering together. All right, so I got my gold in there, and it's going to do, whoops, I'll put that down, there we go. And it's going to do the little decorative stitches in the center here. But it's going to cover up that raw edge. It'll be fine. Oh yeah, it's covering it up with no problem. It'll be fine. All right, so go ahead and do steps number 7, 8, and 9 on page 12, and then we'll come back and do this to get begin the lettering together. Okay, so we got all the stitching done here. Isn't that pretty? I love the flowers on the pie pan. Isn't that pretty? So the last 2 steps, or the last step, again, is the stitching with the sentiment, and it's in the red. And they tell you to go ahead and wind a bobbin with your red thread. But if your machine is properly adjusted and you're using the correct bobbin thread for your machine, the correct bobbin case, you shouldn't have to do that. And I've never done that, so I have not wound a red bobbin. I am going to start my sentiment just like we did on the other sentiment block, and I'm just going to stitch it with my regular bobbin thread. So I've got pre-wound bobbin in my tight bobbin case because I have a brother or baby lock. So I have a pre-wound bobbin in my tight bobbin case, and I use NEB bobbins for pre-wound. So they work very well, and I've been using them for many, many years, and they work very well in the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and let this stitch a little bit. It's going to do the lettering, and then we'll come back together, and I will switch the camera over, and we will trim our 2 blocks because we're almost done with the last 2 blocks. Okay, so here's our give thanks and gather together finished block, and you can see that there's no white showing in my lettering. There may be some machines that have that problem with small letters, but I've never had that problem with my brother or baby lock machine. So I just used regular bobbin thread in the bobbin for those, and there's our finished block. So we're ready to do our trimming here. So I'm going to trim, let's trim the first block first. So these are both trimmed again to 6.5 inches square. So I have my orange pop ruler that's 6.5 inches. And here's my rotary cutter. All right, so I'm going to line it up with my outline here to trim it. So I'm going to get my little tack down line from my fabric all lined up in there, and then we're going to turn it, and I'm going to start in a little bit, pull back to the corner, and push forward. That works the best for me because then I get my corners done well. Turn this way. And trim our blocks. Look at there. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. I really like those. Such pretty colors, and the colors pop off so pretty from that with those soft grays on there. Oh my gosh. So there's our pumpkin. And then let's do our give thanks. So we're going to do the same thing. This one's going to be done, cut to 6.5 by 6.5 as well. Get it all lined up in here. And trim this one. A little bit off. There we go. Took me a little while to get used to using the orange pop rulers because you're cutting on the inside edge, and it is a little different feeling. So once you get the hang of it, it really is fine. But that first few cuts, I had to really be deliberate. I'm way better at it now. So just practice and just take your time. Don't get over You know, don't get in a hurry to do it. Okay, so there's our, oh my gosh, isn't that pretty? Give thanks and gather together. That is so pretty. So there are all 4 of our blocks. So we have, then in the next video, in video number 3, we'll put them together. So here's the pumpkin and the give thanks. That's the 2 we just did. And then here's autumn harvest with the turkey and the gourd. So here's our 4 blocks. So in the next video, video number 3, we will put these together, put the backing on and so on, and the binding and everything. So thank you so much for joining me for the second video of the November Kimberbell Mini Quilt. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up on YouTube. And if you haven't already joined my YouTube channel, Sew Along with Jan, or subscribe to it, please do. That way you know when there's new videos that will be coming out. I also have a Facebook group called Sew Along with Jan, so come join us on Facebook if you're on Facebook. So we will see you in video number 3 for the assembly of our little November mini quilt. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.